Good morning, good morning. It's Elizabeth Eleanor, the spiritual warrior, and this is Wednesday Wisdom, and we're here with Stephanie again, which is so exciting. I love chatting with Steph because we have some really great conversations, and that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed this year. I just decided, wait a minute, I'm not going to do just a different person each week. I want to really dive into some deep conversations, and so this is the second part of the series that I've been doing with Stephanie. So welcome.
Thank you. To have some deeper conversations where we can really go back and forth and nut out stuff. I feel like my stuff complements your stuff and you add this deeper layer underneath my perspective on things. It's so aligned, it really fits well together.
Yeah, I really enjoy it too. It's nice to, and then we can bounce off each other with insights and all sorts of stuff that comes out of the pot when we do these deep conversations, right? So today we're actually going to be talking, we want to dive in a little bit further from what we were talking about last week. And we're going to be talking about understanding big emotions and challenging behaviour, which every parent needs, right? Yes, yeah, every parent wants to know, how do we work with and navigate some of these, because kids are just overwhelmed often in life at the moment, right?
Yep. And I think it goes for teenagers, it goes for younger kids, it goes for those of us who have grown kids, maybe in their 20s or 30s. I feel like at the moment we are, as a collective, really experiencing these, what we call big emotions, just, things like stress, if you want to just call it that blanket level of stress, but it's also frustration or that kind of clashing, maybe someone, our child or someone in our family isn't doing what we want them to do, or they're being hurtful or rude, or they've let us down, or we feel disappointed. There's this kind of clashing there. So I feel like that's going on a lot with a lot of families at the moment, and at least with what I'm seeing. So it's a good time to be talking about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of stuff that, when you think about the behaviours at school and what you and I were having a conversation about it the other day, actually, off camera, I'm pretty sure, about how kids are being brought up and raised by other kids, right? Like their peers.
Yeah.
And so, there's so much we've got to deal with. Kids these days have got to deal with social media and, stuff that we didn't have to deal with at school, right?
I remember Facebook, getting Facebook in university, and whatever year, that was around 2008, 9, 10, 11, those kind of, yeah. So it was that's not 10 years ago. When was that?
8, 9, 10. So yeah, that's 13 years ago. Yeah, 13, 14, 15 years ago. Yeah.
And man, that feels like a long time ago. But taking photos on a camera and then having to somehow upload them onto my computer to then post them on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I didn't. Yeah, thank God I did not go through high school, particularly with social media. And as you said, what we were talking about before, one of the books behind me actually is by Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld, and it's called Hold On to Your Kids. And
you mentioned it last time, actually.
Yeah, he makes such a good case around why. I don't know if we mention it in off Zoom or one when we were
on Zoom. I remember you mentioning it, and because it was the same author from the book that I got into, The Myth of Normal. Yeah.
I think we're really seeing now kids who are growing up into teenagers and adults who have had a very different experience, very different childhood, different parenting styles, because we've had to parent differently. Because, you know, I was raised more or less by mum. She was a stay-at-home mum. She did little bits of work as we got older, but really, if we shift to like looking at kids now in the last few years, both parents have had to work, at least in some capacity, to simply just survive. So there's a big shift in who's parenting and how they're parented, and like a lot of that stuff comes down to how are we dealing with our kids day to day, moment to moment, when the rubber hits the road and they have these big emotions. Do we not have time for it because we're already busy and we're already stressed and I don't have time, and like just you're making a big deal out of it? Like, are we shifting and changing that way? Which I think for a lot of us, you know, that's the way things have.
That's normal. That's life, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to do with emotional intelligence and emotionally intelligent parenting, is coming back to the connection between me as a parent and my child here, and actually kind of shifting the balance a little bit, not in the sense that my child has the say and they get to rule the roost and they meet me as the parent. Like, no, there's still that I don't like calling it the power dynamic, but like there's that shift where we do have to set and make the rules and the boundaries because we have the life experience and we know the deadlines and things. But like I'm saying, we can bring our kids back in line with us in terms of respecting them and their ideas and their opinions and their emotions, and meeting them where they're at, helping them through those. Like we'll probably talk a bit about challenging, disruptive or erupting kind of behavior. And yeah, really making time for ourselves to meet our kids where they're at with those big challenging moments and hairy moments and stressful, ugly ones, so that we're actually helping them to know how to navigate through those, rather than just shoving it down or putting a band-aid on it, or, you know, dealing with go in your room, come out when you come, that kind of thing. Which
And it's interesting, isn't it? Like a couple of things just came up for me. One of them is that, you know, we think we don't have time for it, but keep not having time for it, and you'll spend more time in the disruption than you will if you just stopped, paused, spend the time, use the skills and techniques that you know you and other, you know, like that you support people with, to validate that child's behavior and all the things that I know you're going to say, right? And the other part of that is I've just been, as you were saying that, I was thinking of, I don't know if you have seen it, but there was one of our friends did a post on her personal page I saw today, that was talking about how she had changed her whole morning routine around your chaos to connection, and all the results that she got from having like a way calmer experience. Do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah. It was so great I won't share her name just in case, you know, like she doesn't want to.
She shared it, I think, I'm quite sure, on my public group, and said, hey, I've just put a post, is that okay? And it's in the group, like I need to approve that me or my team does.
I didn't know where it was. Yeah, I just saw.
It's a public group, and I shared it onto my own page, Stephanie Pinto, on Facebook. So people can look it up. You'll be able to find it. Obviously, you know, it's there. It was posted yesterday, you'll see, because you're watching this on Wednesday. So, but go find it, and just, you know, little tweaks and changes that we make as the parent flow, like the ripple effects do the rest. And I know your work aligns with that beautifully, that once we shift our way of being and the way we even not just deal with our child and their emotions in the moment, but the way in which we see those emotions, like the lens through which we are looking at this disappointment, confusion, fear. Like if we start to, usually I say, become comfortable in the uncomfortable, which is bad, but sometimes I go as far as saying, can you welcome and, you know, really invite those emotions and go, these are really uncomfortable, or, you know, you have such big tears and your face is red and you're so mad about this, or you're really pissed off, you know, what's like, let that out, because something
Instead of seeing them as naughty or disruptive or, you know, whatever we like, oh, look, you know, they're doing this again, you know, like, and making it all about us.
Yeah. A lot of those emotions, particularly things like anger and disappointment, like I'm thinking when my kids have been angry, really mad about something, or disappointed about something they received or they didn't get or they couldn't go to, a lot of us will just almost instinctively see that as disrespectful, really bad, like,
Yeah,
ungrateful. Why are you angry about this? That's ridiculous. Or why are you disappointed? It's a gift, or it's
you're being rude.
rude. So we assign these labels to these big emotions, which are just emotions. They're just energy and motion. They're just, yes, they're uncomfortable. Yes, they're unpleasant. They're actually really insightful messages coming from within us that we can pay attention to and learn to understand, and then move through. Like, they don't hang around forever. They
Mm-hmm.
like I said,
And they're not a friggin' stamp on the personality either, you know, like that's one of the things that we also do as a society is go, oh, that child didn't like, when you were speaking about that, I'm like, how often does that happen? Oh, totally didn't, you know, enjoy that present, or, you know, like was disappointed and showed it. How, you know, she doesn't deserve that, you know, like how often do you hear parents make judgments and assessments of other people's kids, right? Like, oh, look at the way she has been allowed to behave, or he's been allowed to behave, or whatever. That was so rude, you know, so disrespectful, blah, 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 blah. And so then all of a sudden labeled as a naughty, you know, rude, disrespectful child, instead of a child that's having a moment. Like, I, you know, my mum, you've just brought stuff up for me. not stuff up, but definitely, like when I was growing up, we didn't have much money, right? So my mum would buy the Christmas presents for that year, the next year, at Boxing Day sales. So I would always get the presents that I wanted a year ago. And and I had to, you know, like bite my tongue, and, you know, I just had to be grateful for it, you know, like, and so as a child, you don't want to be grateful for it, you know, you want to be, I want this now, you know, I that was a year ago, you know, and so it's really interesting, you know, like we're spontaneous, as we're creative. We, you know, we want to be pleased, like, you know, we want the experience of being able to create what we want now. And so, yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, the dynamics that can happen.
I like with that story about Christmas and presents, it's such a reminder, I think, for me, that, and I wonder if this resonates with anyone watching, that when we are younger and we're seen as the child in the parent-child relationship or dynamic, we often have our emotions and our experience invalidated by the person who knows better, or the person who's older, our parent or our caregiver. And whatever we feel, disappointment or frustrated or let down, or, you know, anxious, fearful, sad, whatever, grief, all of those emotions were rarely validated and accepted and allowed to be expressed and released, because we have those stories going on top from the parent. And the parent, you know, often just thought, you have nothing to be upset about, you have brand new toys, like, you should be grateful, you should be happy, should. And so we start to go, like, I know we've talked about this in Conscious Creator and things like that, we start to go, oh, maybe what I'm feeling is wrong, and I don't know what I'm feeling, so I should trust you, or something outside of myself, who's prescribing how I should feel in this situation. And that can go as far.
Yes.
Like, I've had parents who realize they're saying things like, it's not spicy, eat it. It's not itchy, wear it. You love this. You know, everyone else is having fun. Why are you so worried or nervous or shy? Like,
yeah, wow. And all of those are normal. Like, we've all heard that, right? And yet it's so invalidating of, this is my experience. Oh, my experience is wrong. I should, I need somebody else to tell me what's right for me. I'm incapable of having my own experience.
There you go. And that's like a short, if you want the recipe to how to create or raise people pleasers like me,
that's it.
Invalidate their emotions, don't pay attention to or value their experience or their emotional experience, and tell them how they should feel, and tell them what they're wrong when they do feel a certain way. Like, it's just, I mean, how we've all been there, we've all done it.
Yeah, and it's the way we've parented for, like, that's the way our parents parented, that the parents before that, like, I brought my kids up to that respect was not something that you gave just because someone was older than you. That respect was something that like, was a growing thing. You grew to respect someone. And it was a challenging, actually, like a challenging technique or method or whatever to have when my kids felt disrespected, and the parent, the person was an older person, and so they then would behave as, well, I'm not really interested because I don't really respect your opinion. And so because they did have that rebellious aspect to them, my kids. So it's really interesting when we go against the norm, what can come out of that as well, like the judgments of others and, all of those things. But to explain it a little bit more, like give them a little bit more context so that their emotions were understood and that they understood the emotions of others as well. Like that's a big thing, isn't it? Like supporting our children to understand these are your emotions and I've got my own emotions, and so does your brother, and so does your friend up the road, and school teachers and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I think that ability to learn the separation or the like gap between me and what I'm feeling and you and what you're feeling, that kind of leads us into, we're talking about challenge, how to deal with challenging or disruptive or defiant or uncooperative, behaviors, like the things that challenge us, right? The behaviors we see from, could be anyone, but talking about our kids. And if we don't have that separation from the other person's emotions, they can be upset, they can be really mad about something. It could be something completely unrelated, something that happened earlier that day or with a friend or something. Maybe they are upset with you. If we're like enmeshed and with them and we jump in the pool with them, I love that saying, like if they get angry and we get angry and we get defensive and I just thought, this is why, or I have to have the rules, I'm the parent, sorry, I need to say no, and you're not, why are you so upset about it, like blah 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 blah. We can just get in this like power struggle or this cyclone that just ends in frustration and tears for everyone
and destruction. Yeah,
usually temporary, but like rupture and repair, rupture of the relationship and we have to repair. But like if we are able to, I think, just even have the awareness and acknowledge that I am in control, I can be in control, and I can only control my emotional state and my mood and how I'm feeling, and how I'm experiencing this situation. And you are separate. I love you. And oh my goodness, I would do anything for you. And I never want to hurt you. But your emotions and your reaction to this situation is not mine. Like I can have a clear boundary there or a gap, a separation with love, not with a cold-hearted, well, suit yourself, have your meltdown, or, throw your hands
detachment.
up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're not like cold-heartedly detaching.
Yeah.
When I think we are, like for me and my kids, like they're still young, they're almost 6, she'll be 6 tomorrow, and 8.5. And so I know that they're still young and they have these big emotions and these challenging behaviors like eruptions and stuff like that. which is so age appropriate. And so because I understand about, I'm not an expert, but because I understand a little bit about emotions and where they're coming from and how I can manage them and I can move through them without them bowling me over, I like this feels, we have a bit of a sense of like confidence and conviction in how I deal with this and how I help my kids navigate through those moments. I don't get pulled into it. I don't jump in the pool. I don't meet them where they're at and like come on top of it and say, well, here's a punishment to stop that behavior. It's such an empowered place to come from.
Yeah. Having the tools. And so what would you say are for someone out there that's having, challenges with those big emotions, their kids are chucking tantrums in the shopping centre or whatever it might be, what are some of the tools that you would offer them in that situation?
There's a lot of stuff we can do in the situation, and then there's a lot of stuff we can do outside of the heat of the moment. And usually that's where the learning happens between us and our child, because when emotions are settled, when we're coming from this place of like nervous system regulation, our rational logical brain is switched on. And so as our child's, they're more receptive. We can have conversations about what happened, problem solving, what got in the way, or what went wrong, what didn't you like, and what made you so upset, blah, 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 blah. So we can do all that stuff at a different time, like a later time, not in the heat of the moment when we're in the shops and the thing is
not when everyone's completely triggered. Yeah.
Because nothing productive happens then. and I find that I still get questions from parents who are like, but then how do I, in that moment, how do I get my child or the other person to know that behavior is unacceptable, or they cannot lash out or verbally or physically, or, what do I do to stop it in that moment? I'm like, you really, like, if we separate emotion from behavior, which is an important distinction, because we can allow and need to, I think, allow any and all emotion to be released. Like they can be mad, they can be angry, they can feel like it's the worst thing in the world, and even if we don't see it that way or we don't believe it, we can still validate that that's their experience. So we can allow all that without allowing any and all behavior, because some behavior is hurtful, harmful, dangerous, inappropriate. We have to have boundaries around that. They can't be like kicking things off the shelves or like swearing, whatever your boundaries are.
Yeah.
One, do you have that distinction as a parent? Because a lot of the time, for a long time, they have been enmeshed, and we have learned from our parents that, if you're angry, to squash it and to put it down and to contain it and to manage it because you're being rude or disrespectful or whatever it is, ungrateful. So separating those is like a big first step, I think, because that in itself is a bit of a feat when you have believed with every grain of your being for 30, 40, 50 years that those emotions are bad and wrong and naughty. Like, it's tough to allow them to flow, right? To
reprogram that within yourself, right? Yeah.
It's foreign.
Yeah. And on top of that, you're dealing with, like, just thinking of my stuff now, you're dealing with the child's behavior, and you're dealing with your own sabotage beliefs about who you are as the parent, the caregiver, the influencer, and so, and then the beliefs of others and their opinions, you've got a child thrashing around on the floor in the shopping centre or, screaming at the checkout, right? I want that chocolate, which I saw the other day, and so, in those moments, all your stuff comes up.
Yes. And can I just add that for parents, people who are watching this who are like, oh, my kids are not in that stage where they're on the floor at Woolies melting down. Take another situation where maybe your children in their 20s or 30s, they're a little bit older, and you're at a family gathering or you're just popping around for tea or something, and they either at you or just in your presence start complaining towards unleashing, or maybe they're letting something go on you and they're saying, how could you, why didn't you, and you're feeling this on, that's essentially a meltdown or a tantrum. Like the word
same, just an older version of it. Yeah,
they are in that moment overtaken by their emotional centers in their brain, if we want to put it scientifically. They fall back into that inner child, or that primitive part of themselves where their ego is like, I've been hurt and I want to make you hurt, I don't like this, and I'm going to make you feel bad too, and I'm going to let it out. So still, same thing goes, like, how can we separate and allow them to be upset in that moment, like to be really mad, to say what is on their mind, to even sometimes use hurtful words and really let out what is going on for them. And yet then, when usually, like, that's a wave, right? Isn't it a wave where that it peaks?
Yeah.
And then they've, like, either the child on the floor is now, which what happens to my kids, they'll eventually come over to me and plop on my lap, and they'll be crying, and they'll be in that, like, calming back down. The anger is gone, but they've lost some of that, like, fuel.
Yeah, the vital energy within. Yeah.
So, like, can we? This is not easy, but my challenge would be, I guess, for parents, or in any relationship, could be with your husband or whatever, wife. Can you hold space in that moment, despite the onslaught of emotion? I'm not saying, like, if you're physically getting, like, move away, have some boundaries, like distance, all of that stuff. But that aside, can you get to the place where you see what is underneath that anger, which is usually hurt or some other emotion, disappointment, or hurt or fear? Like, can you allow them in that moment to have the space?
Yes. Yeah.
Compassionately, without meeting them where they're at and saying, oh, you know what you did last Christmas? Let me remind you, like, without going there. Yeah. You are beyond your limit. I can see, like, you would, on a rational, lovely, calm day, you would not be speaking to me like this or doing this. There is something huge going, like, let it out with me, and then we are going to work out what the heck is going on. Like,
yeah, I mean, even just speaking those words, right, diffuses that, because often, this is just my interpretation or my opinion. Often some of that anger is the very nature of getting it out there, knowing that the other person's not going to agree or like it, and it's just like trying to, like, there's a trigger in just the heightened awareness of it. So when you give that space and say, hey, I can see you're really upset and angry, and like, tell me all about it, and let's see if we can figure it out, it just takes some of the fuse out of the fuse, right? Because already they're feeling validated. It's just bizarre that we're talking about this, because I've just had this with my son, who will never see this, so I can say it. So he's in his late 20s, and the same thing, like, he had a problem that he hasn't been comfortable with talking about. Every time we've had the opportunity to talk about it, something else has come up, or there's been people around or whatever, and so he's been stewing on this thing from his childhood. There's not just one thing. It was like a series of events, in his opinion, that he remembers a particular way, that I was able to say, no, it didn't happen this way, that this is what happened. No, I wouldn't do that. Like, he was assuming that, that I didn't lock the doors, because I didn't lock the doors when we, living up in far north Queensland. And, like, when we were at home, I locked the doors of a night time, and he's like, oh, okay. So he thought that we never locked the doors, right? And I had two little kids, and, so we got the opportunity to sit there, and because I was able to hold space with him and not feel like he was being aggressive, like putting the blame on me, and because of the work I've done, he was able to say it really really comfortably and ask me these things rather than going, and you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and blah, 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 and holding this aggressive, suppressed anger. So we were able to discuss it and get some, and like, actually, yeah, I did do that. And now I can see that was not the right thing to do. And I want to apologize. And, so we had this great conversation, but it could have gone completely differently, right?
And he could even not have had that conversation with you if he didn't sense that you were open and would listen, and that you would hear him and see what,
and validate his, yeah.
It doesn't matter what age you are as a child or a parent, like whoever you are, it's part of our humanity that we need to feel like a biological drive of, I need to feel seen and heard and important and like I matter.
Yes.
If that doesn't come from a parent, like that's when kids shut down, close off, come home from school, dump their bag, shut their room, shut the door in the room. And like later in life, I know lots of people who have like cut off their parents, and they're like, no, God, no. The moment I could, I left home and we don't speak to them anymore. And I'm like, holy shit, like that's huge.
Yeah. Such breakdown in society, in all of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Bringing it all the way down to these micro moments, that could be handled so differently, and as a society, if we could give space to the parents that are just trying to, work it all out, like, as my mum said, there was no manual when like she's always says there was only Dr. Spock, whoever Dr. Spock was, but she talks about it all the time. Like, if we bring up this sort of stuff, she says there was no parenting like what we've got now and books like yours. And so, parents are trying to sort this out, like untangle the conditioning from their parents and their parents and their parents, right? So I
think that's probably just before we finish up, because I know we will soon. It's not about laying blame and shame and making parents feel like, oh, I've done so much wrong, or my kids don't speak to me, or it's all my fault. Like it's pointless, as in it's unproductive. It's not serving you or your kids to have that, have those feelings. And so, be compassionate with yourself. Like, I am doing this stuff all the time. I'm talking about it. I'm reading, I'm writing about it. I'm speaking about it. And I know, like that story you told just earlier, I'm like, my kids in 10 years, I'm sure are going to say, Mom, you never stuck up for us when Dad yelled or when Dad was angry. And I'm going to say, yeah, I didn't. Like, I could, at that time I couldn't, and I did the best I could, and I'm sorry. Like, I know that all of us, with the tools we have and the level of awareness we do, we're doing the best we can, and we cannot ask for ourselves to do it anymore.
Yeah, can I just share that actually that was one of the things that he had the problem with, was that I used to say, I'm doing the best I can, and he pointed out times when I didn't do the best I could. And I'm like, and luckily, I've got the maturity and cleared by recoding all of this. I'm like, I sort of sat with it with him, and I went, yeah, actually, I can see that there was times that I did things that I wanted to do that might not have been, like, I became a massage therapist. He wanted me to go and work. Like, there's things that, and it would have been different issues, right? So, there's still all that stuff. But, I was able to stop and go, yeah, like, yes, I did the best I could, but sometimes I didn't, right? So, that's just the way it is. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting topic. I'm looking forward to next week. Before we go, we have a raffle for your, for a signed copy. And so yesterday, so we're actually, we're doing this today. We're actually recording this because it's your daughter's birthday on Wednesday. So we're having a recording so that you can have that beautiful quality time with your daughter. So Tuesday, when you see this, there is, I actually put a post in to get everyone to put yes to see and to go into the raffle. So what we'll do is anyone that's watching this, just throw in yes if you're interested in having a signed copy of this amazing book that's gone to Amazon #1 bestseller in quite a few categories. And so it's awesome. And so at the end of the day, we will do a raffle and we'll let you know and hook you up with the beautiful person. Yeah, so good luck to all you beautiful women, anyone that wants it. If you want it for yourself or even if you want to get a copy for somebody else. And also we will put the link in or get Steph to put the link in so that if you don't get a copy that you can actually buy one as well, because it's an amazing book. So thank you again. Beautiful, Stephanie. I love these chats. So insightful, and we can just go so many places with them, right? So
I love it.
take care, everyone.